that they get. That's why they signed these treaties, and this is what they get from these treaties. Okay? They get rights of access to all traditional, off-reservation, and of course on-reservation too. But off-reservation is the big deal, right? Right? Just being able physically to get there, right? No fences, no giant fish wheels in the river, being able to get there. Rights of allocation, that's that in common with language, okay? Up to 50% of harvestable fish that pass traditional fishing sites. And then this third one, though, is the one that's been left undone and unaddressed and unresolved. But the tribes have always asserted that guaranteeing these other implied rights means that they also have these. They have rights to healthy fisheries habitats. They have a right to a river that has not been despoiled, okay? Because when you despoil the river, you destroy habitats and you cut into the tribe's allocation, right? And so it makes sense that doing something to adversely harm the fishery habitat is just as bad as interrupting the tribe's allocation, right? It's just as taking some of the tribe's allocation, right? And so that seems like a pretty good argument, but the courts so far have not affirmed that argument. And that question actually still hasn't been resolved. They thought for a while it was resolved, but then it got overturned on what happened to my... I want to get to the very last slide, and then we can consider this done. Okay, there's the Judge Bolt decision, but this is the fisheries habitat protection rights. These are the protection rights that the tribes have asserted as being impliedly reserved in the Stevens Treaties, okay? But the courts have disagreed on this point. So this is still unresolved. Are the tribes guaranteed a healthy fisheries environment? What that would mean is that the federal government and its successor governments, which would be all the Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, the Columbia Basin states, that took the responsibilities when they took over the federal responsibilities to the tribes. Anyway, they would have, if this is true, if what the tribes are arguing is true, then the states and the federal government are obligated to prevent. They have what lawyers call an environmental servitude. There's an environmental servitude over all of these historic fishing sites, right? And anything that disrupts tribes' fishing rights is going to be enjoined, right? So states can't do that, and states can't, for example, give approval to projects. So what does that mean if this is true, though? What about the 4 Lower Snake dams? What do you think? Would the 4 Lower Snake dams continue to stand in the Lower Snake River, disrupting these fish runs, right? And these are fish runs that the Mid-Columbia, all the treaty tribe, we're talking about the Umatilla, the Warm Springs, the Nez Perce, and the Yakima, right? They all signed these Stevens Treaties, and that's their area, right? The Mid-Columbia and the Snake. So, if my point here, before I let you all go, my point here is if this reading, which is the tribe's interpretation of their own guaranteed rights, if they're correct on this point, then those 4 Lower Snake dams, there's no more argument. They are simply, they are violations of their treaty rights, right? Because they severely interrupt the habitat, the migratory and the spawning habitat of treaty fish, right? And because they disrupt the migration and the spawning of treaty fish, they're treaty violations, right? They're violations of this right, which the tribes assert, which the courts haven't yet accepted. Maybe one day they will. The tribes decided to stop litigating it. They were asserting this right to a treaty, to habitat protection, but eventually they stopped because they were worried that if the court does rule on this question, then it would slam the door on them permanently if they got an unfavorable ruling. And so they'd rather just kind of leave it open. And so far they've kind of gotten their way on some other issues, so they're okay with it. But anyway, so if you ever wonder now you can begin to address your wondering about how do these Indians have so much power around here? You read in the newspaper all the time, right? They got this and they got that. They can't be regulated by the state, right? They don't have to go get a fishing license. They just go and fish. What's up with that? Anyway, now you begin to understand why they have so much power, especially up around Puget Sound. Their fisheries remain very valuable, while the Mid-Columbia fisheries, unfortunately, there were no Stevens Treaty signatory tribes in the Lower Columbia. The Chinookan tribes, I'm not sure I don't know that history, but The Stevens Treaty signatory tribes are all in the mid-Columbia, and those fisheries have already been they've been damaged so much that, all those Stevens Treaties related disagreements aren't really that important anymore because there's just not a lot of fish left to fight over, right, in the mid-Columbia. But up around Puget Sound, those rivers are still very abundant, right? So there's still a lot of, and that's the area where, for example, Judge Bolt got burned in effigy. Some of this guy that issued the Bolt decision, which is where we get our 50%, where Native people get their 50% allocation. This guy was burned in effigy, and he was, people hated him for what he did. Not around here, but up in Washington, because up there, what he did really still meant a lot. It had economic implications. So it was a big deal. It's a fascinating story, as I started to say, the story of the fish wars up there, especially. And now you know part of it, okay? So enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you all on Tuesday. And we'll just keep plugging along, okay? Let's just keep coming to class and keep working hard. We have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I can do. I have two questions for you.
Okay.
How is the final test gonna be?
It'll be pretty much like the midterm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have as much time as you want on it, though.
All right. So
And do you want to take it at home?
it's gonna be take on do
If you want to take it at home and you don't want to show up in class at all, then I'll just send it to you.
Okay.
You want to do it that way?
Because that way I can do it in the computer.
Oh, so you do want to show, what I usually do is I just have people show up on the final exam period.
Oh, with their
And then sometimes, with your laptop.
Oh, all right.
Then some people don't want to take it in this room, and then they go to another room, and that's okay too. Some people
Okay.
even just go home. That's okay
Yeah,
too.
if you can send it to me, that would be.
Just, talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Send me an email and just stay in touch about that, all right?
All right. And another question is it too late to turn in the extra credit?
No, please do.
Okay.
Absolutely, please do.
Thank you.
Yes, Nora, what's going on?
Totally